Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Blatantly Biased Racing Podcast, where we were trying to get an Australian for the Australian Grand Prix, but we found the next best thing. Someone from New Zealand. We're joined by the wonderful Josh Revell. I'm joking, of course. How are you, man?
Fantastic, man. It's also, Australia is the closest thing we're ever going to get to a home race. Despite our aspirations for a proper New Zealand Grand Prix, we're never going to get it. We're not even going to get a show run here. So take what we can get.
Yeah.
Or winning a World Cup in cricket, by the way. Yeah.
I'm going to swim
It's
the
cricket.
streets,
Who cares?
all the oceans in the world, just to exact my revenge for this moment.
Yeah, I mean, just a question, Josh. What the fuck does what's his name? Glenn Phillips eat? Because that kind of athleticism is just crazy.
Listen, cricket's not a real sport.
I mean, you should watch it a few times. It's not
Listen,
like Irish are too good at anything else.
It's after Freddie Flintoff on a panel show said, "I've just played cricket because it was a means to an end. It's not a fun sport." I was kind of like, oh, well, he would know, so I'll take his word.
I mean, I think I'm like one of only like three
Start Formula
Kiwis
One,
that prioritize baseball over cricket in this country, but you know, just me. But we're here to talk about F1, the beautiful, beautiful sport of F1. Finally have a full-time Kiwi on the grid for the first time since Brendan Hartley, which means that finally New Zealand actually has a good representative driver on the grid for once.
Yep.
True. We'll talk about
Hell
him
yeah.
as well. By the way, let's begin. Let's begin proceedings. First race weekend. Just to brief you a bit about the format that we'll have. First of all, we'll talk about a few, you can say, talking points. Some of the news things that are basically in circulation right now, and then we'll get to the Australian Grand Prix. We'll preview it a bit, share our predictions, and then fuck off. So
Yeah, just
with
peel
that-
the damn orange.
Precisely. Precisely. Let's begin then. First of all, Josh, we've not had a word from you on this. Just in brief, 2025 season. What's your expectations?
I am optimistic about this season. I've got a good feeling about it for some reason. Similar feeling to other seasons that have come and gone, where we've gotten really damn good championship title battles as a result of them. I did have an inkling of a feeling last year that something was going to happen, but something was stopping me saying, Max is going to take this. And we saw that there was that carrot being dangled, but then the power of Maximilian, coupled with the lack of power of Lando in Turn 1, mortal enemies, just blew it. Had a potential opportunity for a great championship and just, it was ruined. There is talk of McLaren having a big advantage in race pace. That doesn't last for a whole season. Things definitely do change over the course of the season, especially 24 race seasons. So I'm going to guess it's close now. You can throw a blanket over 4 of the cars. That will converge. That will change on a round-to-round basis. It's going to be about the driver that can consistently put up the results day in and day out. Element of luck, maybe, just who knows? There's not really a definitive answer as to who's going to win. But in my case, I'm going to say George Russell will be the champion, and I will hate myself forever.
I mean, such a nice kid, George, isn't it? I mean, he wants to mentor Kimi Antonelli just like he was mentored by Lewis.
I believe I
guys.
predicted George Russell as champion last week as well in the Peter book.
Did you? You predicted Lando Norris, if I'm not wrong.
No, the other two people did. I predicted George Russell.
You might have. I was too sleepy.
We can.
Anyways.
It's literally on video, so I'll find out.
Yeah, we'll probably find out. Anyways, talking about George Russell making comments. Did you guys happen to catch up with the Drive to Survive series this time around, the 7th season?
Yep.
Good lad.
I think I stopped watching after
It's
like
basically
episode
a
1 or 2
professional hazard
last
for me.
year.
Yeah, it's just for me, it's a professional hazard. I have to cover it and get the review and stuff out for the website. Uh, any again, there's been a lot of backlash when it comes to the fake storylines and stuff like that. Any takeaways for you guys? I mean, something that you
like. I don't know. This is the thing for me. I think you just have to get expectations around your head the whole time. Like, at the end of the day, like, if you go into Drive to Survive expecting it to be like hard-hitting journalism, giving you the background of what's really happening in the paddock, you're always going to be disappointed. Like, it's a Netflix reality show that's on the same streaming service as Selling Sunset. Like, what do you expect? It's not going to be any better than that. So, like, I just think, like, I kind of enjoy Drive to Survive. It's like a guilty pleasure because honestly, it's kind of fun just to see, as long as you're aware that they clearly edit in lots of things, they clearly edit and cut things out of context, and there's sound effects are all over the place. It's kind of just fun to kind of see them, and you can see Toto and Christian playing up to that. They know how it's going to be edited. I liked it. It was kind of fun. They didn't really. The only thing I thought was interesting was they never once mentioned what the actual Horner thing was about. So they had like the controversy the whole time, but they never actually fully mentioned like he's having an affair or it was just kind of, it was interesting.
I guess the reason why they did that was probably the legal things. There's already a legal case going on, so they have to keep them out shut when it comes to that.
And then did you notice that Checo had like 3 lines in the entire series? His performance in the series was about as interesting as his performance on track last year. Like, he showed up 3 times. It was brilliant.
And again, by the way, showed up in Baku. It was precisely the same weekend.
And he showed up in Baku, they put him 1 line, then he crashed out, wasn't seen again for months until he left. That's basically how his season went, and I thought Drive to Survive covered that perfectly.
I'm slightly pissed off about one thing. So what I'd got to know was that if you guys remember, after Qatar qualifying where Max had
the George Russell thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't in it.
They have the clip. Why did they not put it? The clip is there. I know it from pretty reliable sources that there is a clip where Max basically comes up to George and says that I'm going to put you in the wall. And they've not shared it.
I think probably similar reasons
George
as to why.
Claimed that as well, right? He claimed the same thing in Abu Dhabi, if I'm not wrong. That Max basically threatened him.
Yeah, look, it's probably the same reason that Checo actually wasn't in, because there's a lot of areas where Checo should have been giving statements and he wasn't there. I have a feeling there was some legal discussions afterwards of like, look, we're not showing this and you're not showing that,
Yeah.
Like, you have to keep in mind these shows. As a streaming documentary maker myself, no. I'm just saying there's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes on this, So I'm sure it's just something as simple as that. Like, if they had something that they knew would be explosive that they could put in, they're putting it in. So there's got to be some sort of red tape that stopped them.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But I think for me the biggest takeaway is that if you followed the previous season, it's better you do not. I mean, don't really stress too much about whatever you're watching.
What's weird to me, and I thought about this over the weekend, is there are probably people who watch Drive to Survive and not Formula One, and that is a strange idea for me.
Apparently there are.
Yeah,
there are a lot of people, and the thing is, there's a large portion of converts from DTS to Formula One, and I did not know that before I ventured into the world of F1 Instagram.
No, but I mean, there are people who
a lot of people
don't watch Formula One who just watch the series.
Yeah, not only that, but
that's bizarre.
The point I'm making. Yeah, I know, but because for them,
of course, there's a lot of converts. Yeah. But
the point is that those converts are adding a huge value to a sport that is, honestly, it's basically 20 millionaires going around in circles.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually see the main issue with that when you see a sport like MotoGP or probably IndyCar to a certain extent, where quality is there, but those guys don't get appreciated. I just, fun fact, MotoGP world champion last season, he has less Instagram followers than Lewis Hamilton's dog. And I'm not kidding.
Oh.
And
on that bombshell, let's talk about actual Formula One now. Forget about Netflix, please.
Yeah. No, I was going to pivot from this to the Senna series. I think Josh, you've
Oh,
seen it. I have
Jesus
not.
Christ.
Yeah,
I
yeah. Josh
have
has seen this one.
seen it. Not all of it. I've seen enough of it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
May I start this
Exactly,
conversation? Because I
and
know,
again,
because we know
I'm
this
amazed
is...
by one thing.
Hmm?
Yeah, I'm actually amazed by one thing. Most of the times when I put the whenever I put out these whatever the rundown of the podcast, I'm pretty sure Josh has not. Josh, you probably read it. I'm pretty sure Jason has not even read the rundown. Haven't you?
No.
Haven't, right?
No.
Yeah. Anyways, that's why he has no clue what I'm talking about. So apparently, Alain Prost has come out and said that he's thinking about leaving social media entirely because of the kind of toxic hate he's been getting on a daily basis from the Brazilian segment of fans, and it kind of coincides with the way he's been portrayed in the new documentary. I mean, even in the last documentary, it was utter bullshit.
You mean in every single documentary and coverage of the Senna
Seems
Prost
like it,
rivalry?
yeah, yeah.
And what actually happened as well. Yeah. Getcha.
The problem for me is there's a lot of in the name of creative freedom, a lot of these docuseries, they kind of go beyond what's acceptable, because the way Prost has, and again, for me, the first introduction of Prost was the first Senna documentary, which was a huge hit in 2011 or 2012 something, and my first reaction was he's a bit of a cunt. That's my first reaction. But then you go back and you take a look at how the entire thing happened. You follow what the experts say. You watch other documentaries, and there's a very different view you kind of get. And even Murray Walker also said the same thing, that for him it was Senna who was at fault because he was the one who broke the agreement first in Imola, 88 or 89. I'm forgetting. And once you do that, from then it's gloves off. It was never about Prost doing something that was wrong. So why he gets portrayed this way? Again, you want to. There's a lot of creative freedom that goes into this, but should there be a disclaimer or should there be something in place? I'm slightly confused about it.
I mean, there was talk about this whole Netflix series and about how it would be semi-fictional or something like that. Like, they said there was going to be an element of creative liberties taken here. Like, the amount of creative liberties that were taken in terms of historical accuracy, it was getting close to the Ford versus Ferrari movie levels of just absurdity. Just like, look, call it something else, because like 70% of what you're portraying on screen here didn't happen. You know, my first sort of introduction to the Senna-Prost rivalry was that 2010 documentary, and I loved it because, you know, it introduced me to the mystique of the man, how great he was, and all that stuff. And you don't need to puff him up. Ayrton was who he is, and arguably still the fastest driver we've actually had in the sport. But that also rightfully it painted Balestra as being the inventor of the micropenis. But what it did also do was that it made Alain Prost a cartoon villain. And it was wholly unacceptable how they did it, but back then, we didn't know, and most contemporary audiences didn't know, so we just accepted it as gospel. Of course, we then read the books, we then look at the races, we have a look at everything, and it's a wholly different story. That interview with Jackie Stewart it spawned the most out of context, misused quote of all time, the whole, if you no longer go for the gap, you're no longer a racing driver, which he used to justify attempted murder. And then this Netflix documentary comes out, and it's just like, I know the Senna Foundation. They do everything they can to make Ayrton seem like a hero, which, from one aspect I understand, on the other aspect, this is almost like trying to make him out to look like a god, which is just like, you don't need to do that. Watched the first couple of episodes and I thought, So they took Snetterton, the flattest circuit in the history of flat, and they put it on the one circuit in Argentina. And the one circuit in Argentina that was in the Andes. It's like, good for you, I guess. The production values were pretty good. It was actually outstanding what they were able to do to sort of replicate as much as they could. They actually used real cars, real props, and kudos to them. I know a couple of people who were screenwriters here, and I'm not saying they're at fault. It's pretty obvious who was at fault here for the liberties taken. But it was even more egregious than the documentary, because at least in the documentary, all they had was archival footage. But here, they were using an actor, and it exacerbated the sort of, that cowardly character that they tried to...
Hello.
Hey,
And that is why you don't talk shit about the Senna Foundation, because they take out your satellites and they stop you from speaking. So, long and short of it, it genuinely is kind of sad how they do this, I guess. And it's no surprise, really, that Prost ends up getting this crap, because what do you expect, really? So, I really hope they stop doing this. It's not a surprise that Alain's been getting this stuff. And I'm guessing that it'll continue for however long they see fit, really. I don't blame him for wanting to quit social media.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I just think it's down to the fact that he's French and he should just put up with it.
Yeah, probably.
Sorry.
Anyway, moving on from the French to the Japanese. What is Anglo-Japanese alliance? Is it Anglo-Japanese? Aston Martin is Brit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Aston Martin and Honda. Apparently, there are a few updates that have come in recently. The first is that there was this interview that was floating where Koji Watanabe said that they were struggling a bit with the Honda power unit. Apparently, he was mistranslated, and he said that what he wanted to...
I believe if you translate exactly what he said, it was that Red Bull powertrains are fucking struggling. We're going to fucking destroy them. And for some reason, that just got... British media just covered it poorly. That's what I heard, yeah.
Something on those lines.
Yeah.
So on one side, that apparently the project is very... It's going on smoothly. Of course, they have the one big issue where they kind of realigned the entire staff when they decided that they were not going to continue in Formula 1. So there's probably a bit of a... What's the word issues? There's some time in terms of development that they have to make up compared to others. But other than that, apparently they are still pretty much on the mark, and according to Otmar Zafnar, they seem to be in good shape. Apparently he has some contacts there.
What I heard as well, and I think the race discussed it in their video, and I had heard the same thing from a friend of mine, that basically it's like, they're talking about struggling, but he's like, you've got to realize that like the numbers that they're aiming for are extremely, extremely ambitious. So anything almost seems like struggling. And that kind of makes sense when you think of the problems that they had and the fact that they have Alonso next year and they don't want another GP2 engine situation. Like, I do think it makes sense that they would just go and say, right, whatever the numbers we think are going to be competitive, fucking double them. So then anything seems like a struggle then to get there. So I think it was Andy Cowell who was quoted as saying, like, if we weren't struggling and everything was going well, then we wouldn't be doing enough. So
Yeah,
which I think, yeah,
exactly. It's the article that came out today, I think.
Okay.
Scott Mitchell on the race only. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just that, look, when you look at it from the outside, and I think Mark Hughes kind of summed it up perfectly, where he said that if this team clicks, it will be unbeatable, and he's right. But there are two main questions. Will this team click by 2026? And secondly, will it ever click? Because again, there are pieces that could be in place, but we still have not seen the evidence of progress on track. And I think that always remains a question mark for a lot of teams.
My 2 cents on this, just real quick, is that I just think it's still just too early. And I don't know if everything's going to click for 2026, but I think like the key to keep in mind is they've literally just moved in the past like 12 months to their new facility. You know, they just got their wind tunnel online. I think this year's car is the first one designed in that wind tunnel, as far as I'm aware. You know, like all of these things only really kind of started to congregate in 2024. And realistically, 2025 now, they've got Newey coming in. They've got Cardile finally in June after Ferrari's kind of play on that again. So realistically, you're talking like a team that's not going to be truly together until kind of midway through the season. So I don't know, like I think they will click. I think all the ingredients are there. And I think the one good thing that Lawrence Stroll seems to do is kind of, he sets ambitious targets, but he doesn't kind of micromanage like some other owners do. You know, he doesn't want to be involved at every level. He wants the best people to take over. And if they don't deliver, you're gone. But that's just the way it is, you know. So I think that's a good way to run things in F1. And it's the way kind of Dietrich ran Red Bull, which was kind of get the best people, let them run it. And I think that's, you know, be harsh on them when you need to, but otherwise give them creative freedom. And I think every ingredient's there. Apart from Lance Stroll, obviously. That's the only weak part of it.
Yeah, but if the car is brilliant, then that won't be a concern.
Yeah.
In each way.
Josh, thoughts on Aston?
I mean, you've covered basically everything that was in your head, really. It's just, again, like, they should have all the ingredients there to make them the powerhouse that they should be. But, you know, they've got to make everything click. And there is some honesty sessions that need to be had with Lawrence as well. But, I mean, who knows? I think if they're going to click, 2026, 2027 is going to be the time. They're going to have a rough time this year. You could tell by how that car was looking. So the best they can do really is just to get through this year, try and convince Eyebrows to stay on board, or if he will not, then, you know, try and rope in George Russell, who, you know, is at the end of his contract at the end of this year. It could be a big net for them. I don't know. Depends on how much forward planning they have, really.
Yeah.
Again, you know, always it just comes down to the proof is in the pudding, and we need to see something. And again, every answer will come in 2026. There are a lot of people hyping them up, and rightly so. We are just yet to see the fruits of labor in any which way. I mean, we saw it with Mercedes. They finished second in 2013. There was evidence of things moving in the right direction. With Red Bull as well, the 2008 car kind of won the race in Monza. I mean, that was the same car, basically just the Ferrari engine. There are areas where you see progress. I mean, we've not seen that with Aston as yet. If it won't, again, you know, it's my selfish motive of discussing something like this is I really fucking hope Alonso has a car to fight for wins in 2026.
Yeah.
Because I think that is his last season in Formula One. I don't see him going beyond that.
I do, personally. If in 2026 they're second in the fucking constructors, I see him staying for 2027.
I think they'll get Max in that case if they're second in that particular scenario.
Maybe. Anyway, have we got another? What's next on the list? I should really read this list.
You should have seen the list. Yeah, finally, Cadillac's entry. It's 10 months, 10 or 12 months. Okay, let's call it 12 months. They will be part of the entire. I think in terms of development, they will have the same development hours as the team that is 10th in the championship for now. What's their approach going to be? I mean, they're taking a lot of parts from Ferrari. That is something that's clear. So it's probably a right thing.
The thing, everyone's really worried about that. I'm not really worried about the time as much because, like, they've already kind of had a working, somewhat like prototype model in the wind tunnel and all these different things, right? I'm less worried about the time because I think that they've had kind of some lead time before this. It's not like they're just starting as soon as that announcement came in. Like, they were preparing for this for quite a while. As you said, the Ferrari parts are there. So it's kind of like Haas coming in where they only have to now kind of get on top of just a certain amount of it. It's not like the whole car needs to be developed, and they get a certain amount of feedback from Ferrari, and everyone's going into a new season kind of, they're going to be at the back, I think, regardless. But my concern is actually the staff. I think like it's just the lead time, even though they started like a year or so ago with Andretti, the lead time to get good staff is really short. And I still haven't seen anyone in particular that stands out to me as, oh shit, right, that is the guy who can lead this. You know, like there's no one. There's some good staff. There's some decent. I don't want to piss on anyone there. Like there's some decent staff from the midfield that they've brought in.
I mean,
yeah. But like, well, yeah, like, is it Loudon that's gonna lead it up?
Graham Loudon will be leading the team.
Yeah.
He has a history. He is. Josh, would you say he's a bit like Fred Visser in some ways? Falls in the same clique.
I'm not too sure, because I do put Freddie in a high pedestal, I guess. So would have put Loudon there. It's difficult to say, but him being there does mean a bit more than just how he will, run the team from a TP's standpoint, because he was involved in management for Zhou Guanyu. So that combined with the Shanghai money, surely you would have to say that he's in with a good shot. And currently a Ferrari reserve. He's going to have the intel of the Ferrari PU and blah, blah, blah. Heading into that, it seems a given, I guess. So the question is, well, do they go for the Checo money again as well? Do they try and go for Valtteri, or do they, Hail Mary and try and get the IndyCar Cole Grimes to come on board? Like they've been adamant that they want to get Colton on board.
By the way, if you think Colton is offered that role, will he make the jump?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're being offered a Formula One gig, you probably would.
Ideally, he's close to winning the championship.
I mean, he should win the IndyCar championship at some point in his life, but we've also got to remember here, by the end of 1992, Michael Andretti was arguably the best driver in IndyCar, because he was fast as all hell. He, Mario was in his twilight years, yes, but he was clearly better than Mario at that time. He was running Bobby Rahal and Rick Mears right to the ragged edge, beating them a lot of the time. He was clearly a damn good driver, but it all fizzled out and pissed away when he eventually reached there. Scott Speed was damn fast in GP2, and then he got to Formula 1, and, we know the story over there. Logan Sargent supposedly had a good run in the junior categories, and he got to Williams, and he often returned to the garage with his car sufficiently disassembled than what it was that they sent him out on. There's not been a great history with American drivers here.
Sebastian Bourdais.
Sebastian Bourdais. Well, man, on that topic though, with IndyCar drivers, in the late 90s, there was a decent enough success rate. Kind of. It was a bit of hit or miss. Yeah. Jacques Villeneuve came in. That was a hit. Alex Zanardi came back. That was a miss, although there were factors out of his control. Montoya was definitely a hit, and probably one of the best drivers never to win a championship. So it can work, but you get the sense that if any IndyCar driver is going to replicate that, it's not Colton, it's Alex Palou. So,
yeah.
But they want the American driver. Gainbridge wants that American driver. And it's just like, well, no, I'm not going to go there, but like,
he's the best American driver on the grid, right? Right now, I don't think there's anyone that comes close. Kyle Kirkwood, maybe.
Kyle Kirkwood, no. Kyle's got the goods. There's also Joseph Newgarden as well.
Oh, yeah, but he's 32 or 33 now. The age thing but
I'm about to make a video on Lewis Hamilton talking about the age, and he's, it's a touchy subject. You've also got to remember, Scott Dixon's 111 million years old. He damn nearly won the season opener without a radio. So these dudes just come along, and it's It's just like, just retire and eat your slippers. It's like, no, I'm about to beat AJ Foyt's record. We all want that.
Yeah.
So, I don't think age is that much of a factor, really. It's about, can you deliver the goods? Joseph's been a little bit less potent, aside from Indy, over the last couple of years. Colton, I think, has got that maverick about him. It's similar to, like, a Gilles Villeneuve or a Greg Moore or Mike Thackwell, where it's just like, he's exciting to watch. I guess that's the appeal of him. And he's an American prospect. But, I think him being in the seat would also largely depend on who's in the second seat. Because if you put in a rookie into that seat, you would be dumb as all hell. You would be dumber than a box of rocks to put another rookie in there when you're a brand new team. So, yeah.
I just, I always come back to a lineup of maybe a Checo or Herta, or maybe Bottas or Herta. I think that's what they're going to end up with, because Tauris was there in the press conference when Colton was questioned about his F1 future, and again, Colton seems a bit uncertain from his side, but Tauris seems to be very very, very adamant on bringing him on board. And again, he's marketable, so they'll probably push him in that seat. But
Yeah.
by the way, I wanted one comparison. Compare this with with the kind of mess that Audi is. And what's going on with them? I think if there ever was a case of an automotive manufacturer doing everything wrong and having a perfect lead time and still doing everything wrong while entering the sport, I think Audi takes the cake. They didn't even have to invest the kind of money that other teams had to in the yesteryears. They aren't coming in on short notice like Honda did in 2015, where it was basically haphazard. They had enough lead time. At least they planned their entry with 3 or 4 years in place. They had everything was in place. They only had to put in the right resources and just give Andrea Seidel everything, and they didn't. They fucked up so bad, and next season it's going to be utter shame, to be honest, where they're going to be.
Yeah, look, if Audi turn it around next season, like if Audi actually show up with an incredible, it's not going to happen, but if Audi show up and they're not at the back of the grid, like, it'll be an achievement, like if they can even beat like Haas or one of the backmarker teams next year, I'll be surprised, genuinely. Like, even the engine side doesn't sound like they're kind of all guns blazing, which it does beg the question. Like, as you said, they made this decision in 2022, right? So like,
yeah, 2022.
Why?
Spa.
Yeah, so why is this so off? Like, what's there's no reason for it other than just, I think the only obvious reason for all of this is that, once again, it's the kind of thing, like I said, the only good reason why Mattia Binotto taking over could work is that it seems to have stopped the kind of constant board control, which I think is a good thing, because I think that's what's killed this project. It was the board basically 1 foot in, 1 foot out. The board of Audi has been very much like Josh's internet. It can't decide whether it wants to be on or off. So welcome back, Josh. That was a nice segue there. So we were just saying Audi has just been baffling because they joined in 2022 and they're still like nowhere. And I think it's down to the board kind of humming and hawing for 3 years. And now they're finally like, yeah, we're all in. It's like, well, it's too fucking late for 2026. But yeah, I know. That's my opinion on that.
Josh, your take on the whole Audi fiasco? Because honestly, when the team came in, when it was announced in 2022, I was very excited because I thought for once there is a manufacturer or an automotive giant that is actually taken seriously. The fact that it is joining Formula One and not any other racing series, because F1 requires a lot of lead time and a lot of resources, and I thought, and having someone like Andreas Seidel, I thought it would actually work for them. Where has it all gone wrong? Other than the usual bits. of it being run from the board.
It almost seems as if they're seeking instant gratification with how they're speaking. They almost instantly got cold feet, after announcing this whole gig. And it's like, you guys are smart enough to know that you got to be prepared for a tough road ahead when developing an F1 team. It doesn't come just immediately. It may have come to you immediately in WEC, which back then there was like, no, hang on, that's Toyota. I'm being an idiot. But other forms of motorsport, they've come in immediately.
It was 2 years, right? It was winning in 2 years. Even in WEC, it was 2 years only. They were winning in 2 years. That's...
Well, no, they did have a great run of form way back when, to the time where the prototypes were two-seater open top prototypes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
they've been there for a while, and they're probably expecting that they'll be able to stroll and do whatever. So it's like, well, you're taking over the worst team to do that. It's going to take at least 5 years for them to get to where they probably want to get to. The question is, what's it going to take for them to get there? And are they going to have the patience and the wherewithal to be able to do that? I'm not convinced, given the language coming out of that camp right now. And I'm wondering who's going to get cut along the way and thrown into the fire, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm honestly not too optimistic about where Audi is going. And I've said it far too many times, but it just seems that at this stage, Cadillac is probably a team that is more prepared compared to Audi, and they just got announced a week back. So kudos to them. Anyways,
on a more positive note, we've got a Grand Prix this
Australian
weekend.
Yeah. Finally. I think the first thing that I think we need to talk about, I think Josh also touched on it a bit, the kind of talk around the pecking order that has been there. I think a lot of people are going too overboard with this, where there's a lot of doom and gloom around how Red Bull is struggling or how McLaren is dominant. I think
You're not alleging that people on F1 Twitter and in the F1 world would be exaggerative in order to sell a narrative.
Honestly, it's not only that.
Surely not.
Yeah, it's not only that. I've heard a few pundits speak about McLaren in a tone that they'll speak about a Red Bull or a McLaren or a Mercedes during those dominant eras. I just don't see the same kind of advantage here.
There's no data to show that.
Yeah.
The only data that you could possibly reference from this is the fact that they were roughly, 4/10 ahead in some race simulations, right?
Yeah.
3 to 4/10, I believe, at Norris, right? Like depending on this, so you could exaggerate it up to 4/10 if you want. Anyway, the point being that Bahrain is not one of their better tracks, and therefore, if you then push that over to their better tracks, they would have this huge advantage. But unfortunately, that's not how Formula One works. So I don't know why, we just don't know what anyone was running. McLaren did look the most comfortable, but I don't see it as a hugely dominant, 1 second ahead sort of thing, personally. I think McLaren will be comfortably the fastest car, but in a season where comfortably being the fastest will probably be a tenth or two, which the driver and strategy can absolutely make up for. Absolutely.
Yeah, and bad starts cannot. Clear dig
He
at
fixed
Lando.
his bad starts. You leave Lando alone, right?
Yeah. For me, I think the biggest thing is it was cold as hell. The track that was there, it was not truly a representative conditions. And to make judgments on the basis of that, I think it's a bit premature, and we are really jumping the gun on that.
Let's just one last note, and then that is literally what the pundits are paid for, though. So,
and here we are dropping words of wisdom for free.
Yeah. For free? Are we not getting fucking? You told me I was getting paid for this.
I was kidding.
What?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyways, yeah. For me, ideally, I think it's going to be a very, very close top four. The one thing that I'm truly looking at is, which for me is the biggest question, is the field spread that is going to be there. As in, the gap between the top four teams and the gap between the fourth and the fifth team. That's the main thing that I really want to see. Because if that gap has decreased substantially, we are possibly looking at a season where there are going to be around 9, 10, 12 different podium finishers. That's going to be very, very interesting.
So Josh, what's your thinking on the top four to start with, anyway?
What am I thinking of the top four? I don't know if I'm going to get through this without the internet crapping on me again.
Okay, go for it.
Well,
Go
that's,
ahead,
that's okay. As a YouTuber, I'm used to being called faceless. Now, the top four in the championship. I've already mentioned George winning the championship before. Otherwise, trying to discern who's going to get second, third, fourth, I don't really know. I will chat about one of those who I do think is going to be in the mix a bit later on, but otherwise, you would have to suspect that Lando Norris is going to be there or thereabouts. Charles Leclerc as well. Piastri's going to draw closer to Lando in the overall pecking order at McLaren. Lewis, I'm not 100% convinced that this is going to be the big wake-up call, so to speak, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a few factors behind that, not least of which is just like, you're now going up against Charles Leclerc, and he is white hot right now in terms of form, arguably the best qualifier on the grid, and his racecraft is not that far behind either, in terms of what's outstanding. It's a lot to compete against.
Yeah.
It's a new environment, and it's like there's not really anywhere to hide right now, and there's also this kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing going on, where sometimes he'll be lamenting about his own lack of pace, and then another weekend he's talking about, oh, I'm built differently. It's like, well, have the confidence for sure, dude, but I do hope you're being honest about yourself and about where you're at. Because,
yeah,
last thing you really want to see is him just trying to make something out of nothing. I guess it's a weird thing to be talking about this with Lewis, but yeah, there are some uncomfortable questions that need to be asked right now. Personally, I don't think he's going to last beyond 2026. He'll get a couple of wins along the way, of course, but this is either going to these next 2 years are either going to cement his legacy as the greatest, or it will be for him the realization of, I can't operate at the very top anymore. Either one of those two things is going to happen here, but either way, this year in particular, I don't see him finishing in the top four. The Red Bull pairing, Red Bull look to have a decent package so far, but when you factor in where the other teams are at, it's going to require a bit more than just Max's usual magic tricks to be able to pull something out of the bag here, even though you can never really count him out. It's hard. There's a good case for a lot of drivers on this grid to discern who's going to be in the top four. And I guess that's why I'm excited for what's coming ahead.
I think the Red Bull pessimism has been quite interesting, just because I understand why when you're talking about the constructors, but I do think like keeping Max out by any measure is kind of as Josh pointed to at the end there, like kind of a ridiculous thing to do. You can never really count him out. I think the thing is going to make the championship interesting is just how close that front pack is, because if Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes are all fighting for wins at the first half of the season, then it's going to make it really hard for other drivers to kind of get ahead. And I think that's where Max will shine. Whereas I think Max's job is going to be almost impossible if like McLaren win the first 4 or 5 races, like even if it's split between Oscar and Lando, like I think if McLaren start winning every race for a while, or one team, it doesn't even need to be McLaren, if it's Ferrari or Mercedes, whoever starts winning multiple races, then that's where it's difficult. What Max will need, I think, to work in his favor is he will, I have no doubt, put in that consistency, but he needs other people to kind of be faltering around him, because I think that's the only way he wins a championship this year. But then, it is Max Verstappen, so that could be completely written off after round like 2.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think the Red Bull car is as bad as it has been made out
Neither
to
do
be.
I. Yeah, neither do I.
It might be the second or third fastest car, and if it is that close, you're basically talking about a tenth or two. Him extracting a decent tap time in qualifying, and then having a good start in races, which he tends to do, which is his basic forte. Once he's able to do that, it's more or less you're on the podium, right? And
Yeah.
for me, I think the mantra to win the championship this season is not going to be about the ultimate speed. It's going to be about relentlessly putting performances again and again and again, and most importantly, having a team behind him, the strategic team and the operational unit. First of all, that does not fuck up your pit stops, which is honestly, we've seen Mercedes do that, we've seen Red Bull do that, we've seen Ferrari. Okay, we've not seen Red Bull do that. We've seen Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes do that from time to time. For Max, the best thing this season is going to be having the strategic unit, which is backed by Hannah Schmitz, who is brilliant at what she does, and at the same time having someone like the the entire pit crew that has been arguably the best on the grid for the last, I don't know, half a decade or so. Every season they're winning the DHL award. You have those two things in place, and you have a driver who maximizes in every race weekend and doesn't have off weekends. I think that's the combination that wins the championship this season. More or less, that's why I tend to lean towards him. Because also there's the other factor, right? That McLaren is not, again, one thing that you can actually discern from D2S, even though you can't discern a lot of things. McLaren was never talking about Lando's championship at any point in time which pissed me off, because honestly that's a poor way of conducting a championship fight, in my view. I think Ferrari is going to face they're going to reach a point where they'll have to ask Lewis to be the wingman, for the lack of a better word, and that is going to go down like whatever idiom you want to use there. And then there's Mercedes, which again, I'm not entirely sure how the George Toto equation works, at least for now. We have to see that, because George's contract ends at the end of the season, so there's something even there. The only stable combination, it seems, at least for now, when it comes to title fights, it's Max and Red Bull, and that kind of takes the cake.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on Red Bull, the only thing that I think could get in their way is just that the only thing during testing that worried me or concerned me about the Red Bull is it did seem a little bit peaky at points. Yeah. And going track to track, especially with some of the, the variation we have, especially because we've got 5 races in 6 weeks. Like, if they have any issues getting up into setup, that could be a big run where they're struggling to kind of get the car in the right window. It's oversteery, understeery, Max isn't comfortable, and he loses a big chunk of points there. That does mean then we're going to have to see, will Max change his racing style, which I don't think, he says he won't, he just races who he is. Like, that whole, if you try and overtake me, we're crashing style isn't going to work if you're 70 points behind going into the 7th race. You know what I mean? So that's where he had a big advantage last year that he could end up not having this year. And that'll be a really interesting one to watch. Casual, I am also just conscious of time. So maybe we either just, I don't know if Josh has anything else he wants to say on that. And if not, maybe jump into predictions or something. Because I know we have to
I'm good.
Relatively soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. I think in terms of pecking order predictions, there's look, last season Ferrari won, so I won't be surprised if once again they make another step and they are still there or thereabouts. Who do you think? Are you still backing McLaren to be the fastest car this weekend?
Josh, go ahead first if you want.
You know something. You know something that's really stupid that we all fall into the same trap in? We're also fixated on who's the fastest at the start of the season. There's no consideration about where potentially people could be at the end of the season. Mercedes, a lot of the time, tend to come on strong at the end of the year in their development cycle. We've seen that over the last few years. They've managed to rein the car back in and get it up back toward the top end of the order, or at least a hell of a lot better than what they were at the start of the year. So there's that aspect. There's also the case of which that some of these teams are going to have to decide pretty early on what they're going to do. Are they going to focus on trying to win this championship, or are they going to try and focus on next year? And there's going to be an interesting set of strategies here that will almost certainly shift the pecking order as the year goes on. And as we saw last year, there were just circuits where certain cars excelled above others. Mercs tended to, favor the cooler track conditions. Just so there's a whole hodgepodge of things that can happen here, even more so than last year. And so, with that said, I really cannot say what the pecking order is going to be, other than Sauber are going to drown, and that Aston Martin will keep them company down at the back. He's got the 4 green cars back there acting as mobile chicanes. But we don't care about them specifically. What we care about is at the front. And the important thing is that we may have a good idea of where everyone is in the first round in Melbourne, but no one can be certain at all about where anyone's going to be come Abu Dhabi. And so that's really it. Where my answer to what's the pecking order going to be is, I don't know. I have no idea. And it's about time an F1 YouTuber actually admitted that.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that's a fairly accurate answer as well, which is good. For a change from F1 YouTubers, as Josh pointed out. Love it.
By the way, the last time McLaren... Okay, Josh. Yeah, even Jason is with... But the last time McLaren started a season as the fastest car, when was that?
2007, right?
No.
Maybe 07, maybe
Is it?
I don't know. Like,
Jesus, how do you
that's
guys
a good
not know
question
that?
Because what was it in
It's not
2010?
98, 99, is it? Or 2003?
2012.
2012.
Front row of Jenson Button. Lewis Hamilton and Jenson Button.
Yeah.
That was a fast car.
And we had 7
had
different
bugger
races.
all reliability.
Yeah.
And Lewis Hamilton, so just was never going to perform.
Anyways, let's jump into the predictions. First of all, Kimi Antonelli, how do you think he'll perform in his first race weekend? Josh?
He's going to win.
I think he'll start a bit slow
what I'm hoping.
in terms of, like, every junior series he started in, he's always just taken a bit of time to acclimatize to his surroundings, I guess, or at least to just fully get up to his speed. I'm kind of predicting there will be early signs in the first 3 or 4 races where it's going to be like, wow, okay, yeah, this guy is all that. I'm not saying he's going to win every race and Superman the field and that comes later. There may be a mid-season slump where all rookies tend to fall into when they're finding their feet. And I'm guessing at the end of the year, when he finally finds himself, we're going to see some pretty special magic from this guy. that could propel him toward the front of the field, albeit just a bit too late to take the title, I guess. I'm very optimistic about where everyone's going to be this year.
Jesus.
But I've got all the faith in the world for Kimi Antonelli. I think you can easily hear that in my enthusiasm for the lad. But, you know, the times that he's had in the F1 car so far, you could clearly see the speed and potential that he's got. But as we saw from turn 10 in Bahrain, where he was taking a very obtuse line every time, that there are things that he's going to have to learn, and he's doing it at one of the top teams, and that is something that has not been done since really Lewis in 2007.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he gets a podium at least at Australia, because that'll make him the youngest podium sitter, taking it away from this man, Max Verstappen. I know you guys can't see the camera, but I'm holding up a model of Max Verstappen's car with 33 on it, a number he'll have on his car again in 2026, I believe. But yeah,
yes,
I think I think he's I think, look, it's probably a bit exaggerated to say he could win any of the first 3 races, but it would be amazing if he did, because that would break 2 records: youngest podium sitter and youngest winner. And I'm hoping over the course of the season he can get 110 points, because that would also take away most rookie points from Lewis Hamilton, which hasn't been beaten since 2007, even though the point system has changed, which is wild. But yeah, my expectation, I think he'll be all right. Like, I think a P4, P5 this weekend wouldn't be surprising. It would be incredible, actually. It would be a really good opening, but I think it wouldn't be all that surprising given how quick this kid is.
You do know if he's P4, P5, then you're basically saying he's ahead of either of what? There's going to, if we assume the top 8 cars are the way they are, in that case, a Lawson is probably one that he should beat. Sorry, Josh. And then there are 2 more drivers out of Oscar, Lando, Charles, Max, Lewis, George that he has to beat. Jesus. You're expecting him to beat at least two out of these 7.
Yes. Yeah, and can I just put something as a quick side note as well? I think I needed a bit of a winter break, but I'm actually more upbeat on Lawson, because I was over the winter. I went back and I was watching some old stuff, and then I did like click up, because I was like, oh, I'm just going to watch a couple of the Super Formula races again, because I did really love them. And I genuinely, I would not be surprised if Lawson is closer to Verstappen than everyone is thinking he will be. I think he's going to adapt to that car a lot quicker than
what are the
previous
expectations of him? They're down in the dirt. Like, basically not crashing would be exceeding everyone's expectations. I'm going to go one step further here.
I'm going to say he beats Verstappen a couple of races this year.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that will happen. But it's also... it sounds sacrilege and it sounds like me coping, but... there are kind of airs of 2014 here, in a way.
Oh God, you should not have talked about what Jason has been.
I'm not saying Liam's going to beat Max in the standings. I'm not saying that at all. But it's more a case of he'll be much closer than a lot of people think that he will be. And I'll go on record here and say that he will get a front row start in Melbourne this weekend. So when he gets knocked out in Q1, he knows exactly who to mail a pipe bomb to.
Can I just point out as well, I have brought this up in the last couple of podcasts, just because this is a 4-time world champion that you expect to absolutely destroy the rookie in Red Bull, happening once again, the exact same as it did back in 2014 with Ricciardo and Vettel. And also that season we did start in Australia, and this is the first season starting back in Australia again after a long time. So there is a lot of things coming together here.
There's one thing that's different, the regulations.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But I was going to say, if he wins Australia, he would be not the first Australian to win the Australian Grand Prix because he's not Australian.
You know something
Yeah.
actually interesting?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, him winning is a big optimistic thing here, even for someone as patriotic as me. But every single time he's made a debut in a full-on Red Bull, I'm not talking about Minardi here, but a full-on Red Bull liveried car. So that's F3, F2, DTM. Every time he's won his first race in it. So if he keeps up the tradition, it would be a remarkable thing.
Didn't he
But
win the
that's a long
first
shot.
Super Formula race as well?
Oh yes, that as
Yeah, but
well.
that's
Yeah,
not
the
it
first
wasn't branded
the
Red
first
Bull, right?
rookie in over half a century, Mark Sura, to win on his Super Formula debut.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
add that to the list.
He's the first driver to yeah. Exactly. So and that was a Red Bull, completely Red Bull car.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
there you go. Josh
Yeah,
is onto something
nationalism
here.
is- Yeah.
So Lawson
that's
to
all we
win
need.
this race. Right. What's the next prediction?
Yeah. Anyway, wait. So I haven't talked about Kimi Antonelli. So for me,
on,
by
come
the way,
on.
just my expectation is, all I want to see is him just mixing it up with the big boys. Him pulling a move on Lewis or a Max or a Charles or any of the top guys. I just want to see how, when you have a little kid kind of ruffle a few feathers. I think that's what I really want to see, because that kind of thing turns heads. Once that happens, you kind of establish that the new kid is here. What happens afterwards, I don't really care where he finishes. I just want to see him being unleashed, and let's see what he does, where the cars ultimately fall. That's what I expect from him. Next one is, how do you expect we kind of touched on it. How do you expect Lewis Hamilton's first weekend with Ferrari to actually unravel? Josh, let you bite the bullet first.
Okay, so you said first weekend in Ferrari, right?
First race weekend.
First race weekend. Okay. He'll get third.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Oh.
that's better than I expected.
Yeah.
I'm
So
done.
it's basically
Move on
after
to a
saying
learned
that
opinion
he's
here.
going to.
I'm gonna say, if you want a curveball in there, I'm gonna say he finishes 6th or 7th this weekend.
I could see that.
Yeah, I think.
And I think
yeah,
I think
sixth
I think
or seventh,
Leclerc is going to be second.
yeah. I think Leclerc wins.
Maybe could do. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be surprised. I'm just gonna. I think I've just given away my fecking top 3, one of my top 3.
Very
But
good.
yeah, I think.
Good job.
I think. I just think that he seems optimistic, but he did talk about how the car was somewhat similar to the Mercedes, and that concerns me that his qualifying pace could be off, whereas we know Leclerc's won't be. And this front pack now is just going to be so tight. I think that if you're qualifying P6 or P7, you're probably finishing the race P6 or P7. Like I think
Precisely.
So
Well,
that's my
something
thinking.
to also
on it.
keep in
And
mind here
I think he
is
will
the
get better.
weather. Like,
Rain.
Lewis is pretty damn good when that track is moist. And so you got to factor in who are the good rainmasters here. Now, I'm not too sure how good Liam is, and the reason I bring him up is because over here in New Zealand, we just got the crappiest, shittiest weather, so we're almost perpetually driving underwater. So that's why we've had a few Kiwi drivers be quite good in the wet. But I don't believe I've seen much of him in the... Well, no, the one wet race that stands out in particular is when he passed Oscar Piastri at La Rascasse in Formula 2 in that daring move and won the race before he was disqualified for Formula 2 things. But apart from that, in Formula 1, the established rainmasters, Lewis, Max, Lando to some extent. Anyone else? Don't say Lance Stroll, because apart from Turkey
Judge.
2020, when was the last time Lance was any good in the rain? Like, for God's sake, remember the last time it
You
rained?
didn't need to add in rain
Any
there.
which way. Yeah,
Jesus.
precisely.
Yeah, So,
Yeah. He was
it'll be
never
an
good.
interesting, interesting factor because was 2014 where the race, or did it just rain before the race? When was the last time that it rained properly?
It rained before the race.
When was the last time it was a
2010.
full-on proper
Wow.
like raining all the time race at Melbourne?
Not raining all the time, but it started wet and then dried out. It was 2010 when Button won the race.
Right, and if we're talking about history repeating here, but then Max is going to get mighty nervous breaking down into some of those corners.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got an 80% chance of rain at the moment during the race. So yeah.
Yeah,
Could
but
be an
you know, I
interesting
mean,
one.
we've seen it far too many times in the last. I mean, since whatever, rain is a bit of a bitch when it comes to these predictions.
Plus, weather predictions are about as good as pundits' predictions on testing lineups. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
not basically. Anyways, top 3 predictions and then just wrap it up. Okay, Josh, let's start with you. Your top 3 for the Australian Grand Prix.
Okay, Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton. I was going to put Max in second
Okay,
place,
well.
but I can't see Charles out of the picture here. So I think Max will finish about 4th. But that's, again, for the 800th time, we just can't tell. Like, everyone's so freaking close this year. I'm excited. I'm invigorated. Like,
Exactly.
for the first time in
when you
like
name these
4
guys,
years.
the-
Ugh.
Yeah. Jason?
I'm going to go with, I think Lando's going to have a strong start. I'm going to say Lando P1, Leclerc P2, and I'm going to put Lawson P3 beating Verstappen, which is going to piss off
I approve
everybody.
of that.
Oh. I think Leclerc wins. I think Norris will be second, and I think Kimi Antonelli will be third.
Ooh.
Okay, interesting.
Bold, I like
What
it.
was the...
Not like I'm putting any money on it. So yeah. I think that wraps it up. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I mean, it's short and sweet, isn't it? So by the way, first of all, Josh, thanks for coming on.
As always.
Jason, yeah, you're here anyways. So I actually can't see either of you. It's so weird.
Yeah. Let me just quickly turn.
Yeah, go for it.
We
Just wrap it
we
up.
don't need this off anymore. But yeah, so thank you, of course, Josh, so much for coming. Really appreciate it. And we'll leave a link in the description below. But I'm sure anyone who's listening to an F1 podcast is already subscribed to the wonderful Josh Revell. And
I think it's better. It's better if we send the message to Josh's subscribers.
no,
To every
we don't
Josh
want. I don't want
subscriber. No, no, no.
subscribers here. Stop
No,
trying
we
to
do.
get subscribers
Out
for this channel.
No, for
No.
all 500k. How many subs do you have? So all 500k
I'd love it to be
subscribers.
500K.
Just hit the subscribe button on ours as well.
My low output due to extreme fatigue is working against me, mate. But no, everyone watching this, give
See,
these
this
guys
is
a
my-
follow.
listen
It's
to-
always a great fun time with these guys. Take it from me.
Yeah, and just don't listen to Josh. I don't want subscribers. You heard Josh, fatigue. If we have more subscribers, we're going to have to be more careful about the content we put out. And I don't fucking want that.
Exactly. So just come over to my channel instead, please. You know, come one, come all.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Okay, love
Thank you,
all.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.